All right. Am I read? Good. Mr. Clerk, would you read the roll call, please? As opposed to the nominal roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Here.
Acting Mayor Campbell.
Here.
Councillor Middleton Hope.
Present.
Councillor Parker. Here. Also members in attendance from Councillor Crowson and Councillor Palladino. Quorum established.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll start with the acknowledgement statement, and this is the revised acknowledgement statement, which I'm very supportive of. The City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people past, present, and future while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The City of Lethbridge also offers respect to the Métis and all who have lived on this land and made Lethbridge their home. We will start with the consent agenda. And I have, thank you, I have a motion from Mr. Sarsfield, moved by Councillor Parker, be it resolved that the agenda of the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee meeting of July 18th, 2024 be adopted as presented. Councillor Parker.
If there's no additions or deletions, I would call the question, Mr. Chairman.
Question has been called. All in favor? Thank you. That motion passes. I have a second motion by Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, consent agenda 4.0. Be it resolved that the minutes of the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee meeting held on June 20th, 2024 be approved, and the chair and city clerk designate be authorized to sign the same, and further be it resolved that the status of initiatives for July 18th, 2024 be received as information. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
If none of my colleagues have any changes or questions about the agenda, I will call for the vote.
Seeing none, vote's been called. All in favor? That motion carries. You're moving too fast for you? Okay. We now have presentations. First on the agenda, Ms. Petrusik Kolb, CEO of YMCA of Lethbridge, regarding your annual report and update. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. So thank you very much for agreeing to have me come to present today about the initiatives that the YMCA has undertaken in the last year as part of the requirements of our operating agreement with the City of Lethbridge. So I am Jennifer Petrusik Kolb, and I am the CEO for the YMCA of Lethbridge, and I thank you very much for taking the time to come and listen to me today. Now there's a clicker. Is it the black clicker? There it is. Okay. So to start a little bit about who we are for those of you who might not be as familiar with the YMCA as others. Since 1910, the YMCA of Lethbridge has been in the community responding to needs of the people who live here. So originally, and perhaps Councillor Crowson could fact check that on me for sure, the YMCA was established in the region as the Trans-Canada Highway was being built across the country. How'd I do? Yeah, not bad. As a place for recreation for young men who were coming to the area. At the center of all we do are our core values, which I have listed up on the screen there. And we actively encourage our participants, employees, and volunteers to embrace and demonstrate these core values. And in terms of our impact, and some of our impact areas will be less known to others as we have grown over the last several years. I'm really excited to talk to you today about some of the impact areas that we've really done a lot of work to develop over the last 5 years since we've moved to the Cor Van Ray YMCA at what is now Cavendish Farm Centre. So we are offering licensed childcare within the city and in 3 separate locations throughout the city. We have a great deal of fitness initiatives promoting health and vitality, including those for people who are in active rehabilitation and recovery. We are offering youth development programming, which fosters leadership and resilience. We offer youth programs related to education and mental health support for holistic well-being. As well, we have aquatics programs, as some of you know, that offer life-saving skills and a place for community to connect. And we have community-based programs for people of all ages and stages where they build potential and cultivate a sense of community belonging. So our strategic plan from 2020 to 23 included those 3 impact areas. And this plan was approved by the Board of Directors just days before the COVID pandemic closures occurred in March 2020. And we wrapped them up then at 2023, wherein the Board of Directors approved a new strategic plan for the next 4 years. As I talked about earlier, we have established a great deal of community programming as a result of our move to the Corps Van Ray YMCA. And so with that, I would love to share with you some fun facts about the YMCA of Lethbridge from 2023. So almost every weekday, we provide licensed care to almost 300 children, ages 1 to 12. And that amounts to almost 500,000 hours of care in 2023. So we did some fact-finding to discover that the YMCA of Lethbridge is the largest provider of facility-based childcare in Lethbridge at this time. As well, YMCAs are the largest provider across Alberta, and YMCAs across Canada are the largest provider of not-for-profit childcare in the country. Daily, we have between 60 and 70 children who enjoy our childminding services, and those are services for parents who are within the facility to actively engage in programming. So this is unlicensed care, but it is included in the cost of membership for those members. In 2023, we had over 20 youth engaged in alternative suspension programming. And a little bit about that program for those counselors of you who were unable to come for a tour at RY recently. That program is a partnership with the local school divisions, and it is for middle and high school students who are suspended or at risk of suspension from school. And they come to the Y by referral of the principal for a period of 3 to 5 days and are supported in evaluating their behaviors and choices. They continue their schoolwork, and they gain skills to return successfully to in-school studies. So that is a new program that we started at the end of 2022 and has grown immensely over the last year. We have our indoor play center, as you know, and that had over 5,000 unique participants using the space as well. And we had over 2,000 children and youth checking into our facilitated activities in the rec room, and much programming related to those activities as well. In the last year at our location, we had 1,206 youth registered in our youth sport programming, and we had over 67,000 attendees in over 4,000 fitness classes. So as you can imagine, a great deal of planning and work and coordination, but we've seen tremendous growth in all areas of programming that we offer. Our dedicated team has amassed over 550 combined years of service, which sounds like a lot, but when you look around and add it all up, indeed that's true. And we have an impressive digital reach, reaching 55,000 visitors to our website and almost 500,000 page views through our social media. And one stat that I'm especially proud of is that 1 in 4 individuals supporting the YMCA generously donate their time as a volunteer. So when we think about who's offering our programming, who's on our board of directors, or who's engaging with community through our promotions, 1 in 4 individuals are making that happen when compared to staff. Of course, we have aquatics programs, and so we had over 1,600 registrations in 2023. And in 2023, we received $286,000 in operating support for the Corps Van Ray YMCA, and we returned $148,000 of that to the city. So here's a slide and a snapshot of our membership numbers as of December 31st, 2023. So as a bit of context, when we developed the original pro formas in terms of membership numbers to develop the initial operating budget, we had estimated that by the end of 2022, we would have 7,200 members. And we had far surpassed that quickly, and now we reach close to 12,000 members in certain cycles of the year. 1 in 5 individuals, and that's a conservative number. I believe right now it's closer to 1 in 4 individuals accessing the Corps Van Ray YMCA for memberships and programming actually receives financial assistance to participate. So we had a good discussion yesterday with Councillor Crowson and Councillor Schmidt-Rempel about how that effectively matches we believe to be the poverty rate in Lethbridge at this time. Last slide here is a bit of a statement of the financial position related to the operations of the Cor Van Ray YMCA facility at Cavendish Farm Centre. And so we've seen significant revenue growth over the last several years, including almost nearly $2 million of growth in 2023 as a result of programs, memberships, and facility rentals. I have brought copies of our annual report if anyone should be interested in a paper copy of our annual report that has some impact stories, some additional information, lists of donors, board members, etc. Happy to leave those here, but also they can be found online at the YMCA of Lethbridge website. Before I go on, or keep going, any questions?
I think we'll ask questions at the end.
Okay, sounds great. So as indicated earlier, the Board of Directors and senior leadership developed and approved a new strategic plan for 2024 to 2027. This information is also available on our website, but we really have 3 key impact areas that we're going to continue to focus on over the next 4 years, those being around connection and belonging, being a charity of choice, and around community enrichment. I think that's all I have for you today so far. So now all the questions.
There we go. All right, so we'll go to questions from the public first. Anybody have a question? Hold on. Anybody have a question first? Anybody have a statement that they'd like in regards to the YMCA's presentation? Still none. I see lots of smiles in the back.
This is the cheering part.
All right. It looks like Councillor Crowson is first in the line. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, thank you for the tour yesterday. I'm sorry I had to dip out early because you certainly had a lot of information on your programs and what you were working on. And through the work that the YC does, you get to see a large part of the community.
Yes.
So based on, the groups you're working with and the people who are coming in, what are some of the greatest concerns you're hearing from the community?
Certainly, affordability is a concern, as we all know. That's nothing new to any of us. And so we have seen increased demand, certainly for our financial assistance. We also know that we have mental health that is creating struggles for people of all demographics that we are keeping forefront around our programming needs as we move ahead. And as we all know, today we hear a child care report, and that is part of a big pressure that we have as well, is that we have wait lists that are hundreds of children long for licensed child care that we simply, can't meet at this time because of capital costs primarily related to the development of child care in the community and any community. It's expensive to develop.
Capital costs are any part of it. And that would be for your organization to raise the money. Is there anything the city is doing that would take some of the pressure off some of these areas and your work?
Yeah, I think we have opportunities to work together to explore sort of where we have congruencies and where we can continue to work with the city or deliver programming on behalf of the city to address some of these needs for sure. And I can see that around programming for youth for sure and programming for adult individuals as well.
It is rare for a charitable organization to be returning some money to us. Can you explain that a little more?
Oh, for sure. So part of our operating agreement, the way that it is written, had indicated right from the beginning that any portion of excess revenue from operations of the Cor Van Ray YMCA would be returned to the city up to the amount of the operating subsidy that was received. And so we have returned operating subsidy every year since we have opened.
Okay. And if I can do a third last question, or would you like me to step out and let Councillor Schmidt-Rempel? Again, aware of what you're working on, didn't see it in the report. Can you talk about some of the community partnerships that the Y does to enhance your work?
Yes, absolutely. So we have made great strides in the last few years around partnerships with Norbridge Seniors Center, also with Alberta Health Services, the school divisions, which I talked about related to the alternative suspension programming. We're continue to see growth in AHS programs as well, to name a few. Lots with community partners related to youth, Boys and Girls Club, those kinds of groups as well.
One of the concerns we always have is how partnerships are going. Is there overlap, or are you just enhancing each other's work? Nobody's actually like stepping on toes in these partnerships?
I would say not. No, we have made a really consistent effort to make sure that we're either supporting them in their programming or that we're working together to offer programs, or that the Y is taking the lead on them, as the case may be.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
You're certainly welcome. Councillor Schmidt-Repple.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Mr. Patrick Kolb, for the tour and information that you provided to us yesterday. I'm going to circle back a little bit to childcare so that I don't have to ask you to come back up when we get to that part of the presentation. You talked about the wait lists that you have, hundreds of kids long. What would that be on a yearly kind of wait list basis? What are people looking at on a yearly basis?
Sorry, do you mean in terms of wait
Yeah,
times?
wait
to
times.
access? Oh, for some, it's easily 2 to 3 years, depending on how old their children are. For some age groups, we simply close the list because we know that we won't be able to have them in care by the time the child ages out of the program. So when you're looking at 4 and 5-year-olds, by the time we would have a space for them, we're likely then not to have that space. Rather than having the parent wait on our wait list, we refer them then to other centers to look for care.
Okay, and what ages do you care for again?
We care for ages 1 through age 12. So we do have a large licensed before and after school care program at the Cor Van Ray YMCA, which is 103 youth. And those youth, we contract busing services to local schools on the west side. And so we have our childcare program, which often is a huge feeder into that before and after school care program. And then we have some spaces for community members who have not attended our childcare programs in that before and after school program as well.
Okay. Another question that I have, and you touched a little bit on this in your presentation, but I do occasionally hear that it's expensive to visit the facility and make use of it. Can you help me understand how you're overcoming that barrier to access?
Yeah, I would say that I would hope that we have done a good job to explain to people that a visit to the facility is a day pass, which means they could visit several times a day and all of the amenities within the facility within that day. When we compare a $15 per day pass for an individual, that is less than the cost of a single class just about anywhere else that you might go in the city, if it's a fitness class that you're coming to participate in. In addition, we do have the financial assistance options for both day pass visitors and for monthly members. And though that program, that is an application program that people are required to complete the application, but it is mirrored to the city's fee assistance program in terms of the income levels and the amount of subsidy available.
Okay, and this, you cover that path, like it's modeled after our fee assistance program, but you cover the cost of that.
That's right. So our Shape Your Future campaign, which is our funds development campaign, are the donations that we receive from donors to support those individuals to use the facility if they qualify based on financial need.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Great. Now I have some questions. You bet. Actually, I was really impressed when Councillor Campbell and I took a tour of the facility some weeks ago. The alternative suspension program seems to really have gained some traction. So I was most impressed with that. All of the other niceties aside, because it is a very nice facility. I use it 4 or 5 days a week, so I'm quite familiar with it. But I was really impressed with the alternative suspension program. I note, and these are going to be some questions in regards to financing. Your operating surplus, it looks like for 2023 is about $210,000. Is that about right?
Well, if you're talking about the association or from the activities at the Cor Van Ray YMCA?
Well, whatever is provided in the materials, it
Okay.
indicates that if I look at what your financial statements are,
Yes.
it looks like there's about a surplus of about $210,000.
Yes, okay.
Okay. You also have a processor, let me just have a look here. You also indicate that, let's have a look at the statement of financial positions. How much of the $1.361 million in grants and contributions come from the city?
Yeah, so that would include the operating subsidy of the $286,000, but
Right.
that does not include grants related to childcare operations. So a large part of that grants and contributions amount is for the affordability grant that is given to the YMCA from the province to offer licensed childcare.
Okay.
But would also include grants for programs like alternative suspension or like our Y-Mind youth mental health program.
Okay, and who funds those programs?
We have a variety of funders. Some of it is, generally they are private sponsors or corporate sponsors or donors to those programs.
So the province takes on its responsibility in regards to assisting in child care or contributions to manage child care, is that correct?
Well, the province receives federal transfer funds from the federal government that is then distributed to licensed childcare centers in Alberta.
So there are other layers of government that provide funding for child care assistance at the YMCA.
That is correct. The federal
good.
government also does.
You indicated that in 2022, $286,000 was received from the city and $148,000 is to be returned. Is that going back into a BAU account or is that simply being returned to the city?
Might you know? I don't, what do you do with it, Robin? When we return the money?
Hello? What?
Come share.
Thank you for the question. It does not go back into a BAU. It goes back, I believe, into the
MRSR?
MRSR.
Okay, good, thanks. One last question then. Wages are up to $1.5 million. Can you account for this increase?
Absolutely. Building and more programs. Yeah, as we see members increase, we need more additional staff to offer programs, to offer supervision, cleaning services, administration services, all of that.
And my experiences with the staff is exceptional.
We are
Thank you.
trying our best every day.
Good.
Thank you.
No other questions from the panel? Oh, you're blinking again. All right. All right, Blinky, go ahead.
Thank you. And this would be a question to staff, because when you do look at almost 80% going into staffing, to our staff, we oversee the maintenance of the building, et cetera. So, I mean, when we're looking at the building, if we were to take our costs in, it would skew that, a little bit, but the city maintains the building, correct?
Yes, the city remains responsible for the structure and the major systems in it. And we do maintain portions of the building internally as far as janitorial. Our staff maintain the aquatic equipment, et cetera. So, yeah, there are costs on our side that are not factored into what Jennifer has
Right.
indicated. Yeah.
So if you were to combine those all, that would put your staff wages probably about 50%, which is what people normally see, which is probably why the question was coming about why it's such a high percentage. But there's other factors in that.
Yeah, not the high percentage, just the increase.
Yeah, oh.
I know what the high percentage is.
One of the things in our last budget, we looked at a possibility, or we were going to debate whether to make transit free for 18 and under and seniors. It was deferred, so hopefully it might come up in a future budget. But considering, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel talked a bit about, barrier being cost, but is there a barrier to location of where you are? And if the city were to look again at potentially maybe bringing that up in a future budget for debate, would something like that support the work that you're doing?
I think that a review of any transit access and service is important regardless of which organization you're speaking to. We do have bus service that is very nearby in terms of a stop to one of our main entryways. However, I'm not very familiar with the transit system to say whether I know it's convenient to get to or not.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Good. Doesn't look like there's anything else. Thank you very much. Thank you. I have a motion from Acting Mayor Campbell, annual report and update of the YMCA. Be it resolved that the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee receive the YMCA annual report and update as information. Acting Mayor Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for the presentation. I think back to when the YMCA opened up in Corvan Ray spoke to everyone there. He said, "This is the best investment I ever made," and you continue to prove that. And as Councillor Middleton Hope said, the tour that we were given a while ago really shows that it's more than just going to do some weightlifting and swim a couple of times. There's so many other programs that are so beneficial to the city that you really are the center of the community. So I really am impressed with all that you do. So with that, unless there's any other questions, I would call for the vote.
Vote has been called. All in favor? That motion is confirmed. So now we are on to submissions. Mr. Malcolm. He doesn't have to come.
It's just a submission, so you read the resolution.
I think he should be ordered to come.
So you read the resolution first.
And we have a resolution from Councillor Parker. Building Safer Communities Fund Project Update 6.1. Be it resolved that the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee, thank you, Councillor Crossan, receive the Building Safer Communities Fund report and attachments as information. Councillor Parker.
Was there any questions, first of all, from the committee?
Yeah, hang on.
Is there any questions?
Yeah, I'm just looking at my questions.
There are people in your
I see one. Councillor Schoenmarpel.
So do we have folks here to answer questions from the study or from the mover? Yeah.
Looks like Ms.
Yes,
Kleisinger
Ms.
is ready.
Kleisinger? Okay. So help me understand, how were the youth organizations engaged? Were we looking at a wide range of youth? Like what age range were we looking at for that? What kind of organizations were engaged? How was that engagement process undertaken with our youth organizations?
So I do have Ms. Motts and Ms. Algren online, and they're the ones that are going to be answering the questions. Somebody let Mr. Malcolm take vacation. I don't know who that was, so we'll pass them along.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so for our engagement sessions, we held stakeholder engagement and then also focus groups. So for the stakeholder engagements, those were one-to-one interviews that were held, which included children's services, both representatives from both school divisions, and then youth probation, and then a prosecutor from the GOA, and then there were some other that weren't youth-based. But for the group sessions that were held, we contacted all youth serving organizations. So this included McMahon, Woods, Lethbridge Family Services, Big Brothers Big Sisters, YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, Blackfoot Resource Hub. And in the focus groups, our consultants held I believe it was a 2-hour information session with questions that were relating to youth needs in the community as it related to justice supports and presenting needs.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Now, based on this, in the report, it says that educators and case managers are actively utilizing their learnings by creating community-based initiatives that align with the city's priorities and proven to be successful in other municipalities. Can someone tell me about the initiatives that have come out of this and how they are helping at-risk youth?
Yes, so right now, I believe it was part of the submission. So one of it was an initiative called Off the Record. It hasn't started taking place yet. The first session will be July 27th, but it is where we have off-duty officers that are out of uniform that go into neighborhoods that don't have a lot of youth programming or youth have access to activities, and they'll be playing recreational organized sports. So the idea is to help build relationships with officers and youth in these communities and help build a positive relationship between the two. And then the other one where we've seen other places like BC is establishing an online safety toolkit. So something through the needs assessment that we saw was the need of to better inform families and communities of online safety and provide a preventative approach and contain vetted resources and evidence-based information when utilizing the digital world, is in that like a lot of youth are placing themselves at risk while they're online. And then another one that we are working on currently is a community safety toolkit that is in partnership with LPS that we hope to address safety concerns that were voiced in the community-wide survey to help empower people.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll jump out for now.
Thank you. I have two questions. First off, what is a pop-up group?
The pop-up sessions were hosted in 2 different locations. So we went with our consultants to the YMCA and then to the downtown library where people naturally come and go, where we just wanted to have and engage with the public on their perception of safety and what affects their safety and what they felt youth needed in the community.
And why did you select the YMCA and the library?
We selected the YMCA because it is a very popular spot where people are coming and going, and it's utilized not just people from the west side, but throughout Lethbridge. We had a few other ideas in mind, but because it was during that very cold snap, it prevented us from doing some other locations. And then the downtown library was the other option that was available to us, where we could then engage with a different demographic and population.
Okay, so they're unplanned, is that correct? In other words, there's not advertisements in advance to draw people to a particular location. It's simply you're accessing citizens who are attending a particular location.
We did post it on the Get Involved page when we had our survey available that we were planning in those 2 days.
Okay, great, thanks. Next question is in regards to the Downtown Insight Summary Report. This summary report is to be used by the Downtown Lawlessness Reduction Task Force from Community Safety Needs Assessment to inform its work. When will this occur?
One of the reasons that we wanted to bring forward this update to the SPC today was so that the full findings of that community safety survey would be public and available to all of City Council and other council committees should they wish to receive that information and utilize it for the work within their committees. Okay. So that's part of the agreement with the submission today is the full result, not just the downtown.
Okay, that's not what the report says, though. It says that it's going to be made available specifically to this committee. Has there been some discussion with the committee in regards to providing this information, or is this something that's simply going to happen in the future that you anticipate? Ms. Kleisinger.
Yeah.
Just trying to find out when this is going to be provided.
I anticipate that as you deal with the next item on the agenda, that the best time to bring it forward is if it were to go and be included with the downtown clean and safe strategy.
Good. Okay. Thanks very much. One other question from Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, it looks like.
Yeah, and this to Ms. Kleisinger. As we move through the agenda today, and I'm specifically looking at the child care needs assessment, how much of this research from this particular item can be shared with that motion's phase 3 initiatives, because there's a fair amount of overlap on that. So are we going to be overlapping the findings from this study with that as well, and those initiatives will be able to make use of what went on with this study?
I definitely think that's the goal, that we're not redoing other information and so using it as a holistic approach.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Good. Looks like questions from the panel. I'm wondering if there are any presentations in regards to this submission from the public. We missed that one. Doesn't look like it. You're covered. Great. Yes, I have read the resolution.
Sure.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. The question has been called. All in favor? That resolution passes. Now I can put it up. Next, we have a submission moved by Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, Lethbridge Child Care Needs Assessment. Be it resolved that the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee recommends that Council implement the Child Care Needs Assessment as provided in Attachment 1, And consider Service Level 3, $151,000 ongoing annual funding for one full-time equivalent position, plus $50,000 one-time funding as outlined in Attachment 3 at the 2028-2031 operating budget deliberations. Councillor Schmidt-Reppel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I will take questions from this committee.
Well, we will ask if anybody would like to make a statement in regards to this submission. That's you and the public. Yes, please come forward. Kindly please state your name, and if it's hard to spell, please do so for the clerk. You have 5 minutes.
My name is Heather Kappas. I'm the child care supervisor at Opequon Early Intervention Society.
Okay.
I just wanted to make a statement first to Logan. He worked very closely with us as the Director Association Board here in Lethbridge in Southwest Alberta.
I'm just wondering if you could lift your microphone up a little bit.
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah. Those of us that are a little older have a hard time hearing.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to first just really show our appreciation for even bringing childcare to the forefront. We're in a really difficult place with funding and staffing and just really everything. All of our wait lists are full. We're working on the space creation stuff, everything. And yeah, we're all just really in a hard place. So it was very appreciated for Logan to kind of come to us, let us all speak what we were going through, private programs, non-for-profit. I think we're all standing together when we talk about that. Right now, I don't know if you guys have a lot of information, but with those wait lists comes not a lot of inclusive care in childcare, so there's a lot of children being forgotten in programs. When you have a long wait list, a lot of the children get forgotten, so you're picking and choosing who you want to take. A lot of the staff children get first dibs. A lot of the families that are already within programs get first dibs. A lot of those children that have autism, special needs, they're not really picked because there's already not a lot of funding when it comes to those needs, high behaviors. A lot of children are being removed from programs because they can't fund those children. So yeah, there's just a lot of things to keep in consideration, and we really appreciate as a childcare sector that you guys are even doing this today, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll entertain questions from other members of the panel, which would include Councillor Parker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So I always have concerns when you add to the bureaucracy of a corporation, and especially when it's in the mandate of a provincial government. But I also understand that the City of Lethbridge does have a role. And the role, I believe, and maybe Ms. Slovak can help me out or someone from planning, is there a way that we can, is our planning department working regarding zoning, future developments, future areas in regards to future childcares and brownfields, that kind of stuff?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Parker. Yes, so looking at childcare, major and minor, where they're located within various districts is in our Phase 2 land use bylaw scope. So we would be looking at that.
And that's outside of the $150,000 to be allocated towards a position of someone. You'd be doing it no matter what, even if that didn't happen.
We will, provided the land use bylaw goes ahead. Yes, indeed, we will be looking at that as part of Phase 2.
And it's a really good report. Is there anything else that we, and I don't know, this is more of a generic question, is there anything else more that we are doing as a corporation to advocate, maybe from at the political level, at the municipal level, but is there anything else that we are doing in regards to childcare spacing, childcare housing in the city right now? Because the concerns I heard were valid, and I want to make sure that we are doing stuff as a corporation.
Thanks for the question. Yes, there are a number of things that the city has done historically, and even coming out of COVID, there was some discussions that happened and some analysis that occurred. What the recommendations here are for is to really concentrate those efforts, because there hasn't been a strong plan for the city as a whole to move forward and lobby to the provincial government to make some changes and improve the situation in Lethbridge. And all of these recommendations, what we tried to do with this plan is make sure that they were all things that were within the city's jurisdiction and that we weren't imposing or duplicating what the province would be doing. So all of these are things related to policies that the city has control over, land use being one of them, and other roles that the city can take.
Thank you. Maybe my next question to Ms. Gehring. Outside of the $150,000, if this $150,000 wasn't approved at the next budget cycle, could a lot of these objectives still be accomplished within the existing budget and resources?
So Councillor Parker, what would be accomplished would be engagement with the community in regards to childcare within neighborhoods and also within commercial districts. Also looking at some of the population requirements we have, so the 50 kids or less for the minor and major. In terms of all of the other advocacy work, that would not be part of the land use bylaw review.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Acting Mayor Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, you know, I wonder about our relationships with the provincial government and then the federal government and the municipal government. It's all intertwined, and I'm always a firm believer in having those relationships. So I wonder where we're at with that, and if you can kind of go through some of the barriers that you're facing when coming up with ways to provide more childcare, and what sort of what can we as councillors do for advocacy with those other forms of government?
Thanks for the question. I think the biggest challenge that we experienced when we were completing this is just communication between all of the three different levels. And within service level 3, having that one dedicated person to actioning youth objectives would be a pretty big cornerstone to ensuring that that communication between those 3 levels can happen. We did meet with some representatives from the province, some staff members, and they were all quite interested in the report that Lethbridge was doing, and they were hoping that other municipalities would follow suit. And there were some discussions on maybe there's some learnings from this report that the city of Lethbridge has completed that they'd be able to implement in other communities. So it seemed like there was a lot of great things that the province thought came from this report specifically.
So when you're going through trying to get some funding, do you go to the provincial government first, or does it go to the federal government first, and then is there matching from someone else? And how does that process all work? Or it's probably different from every kind of available dollar, I imagine.
So with the $10 a day daycare, the agreement that the federal government has with the province is they give the money to the province, and then the province implements their programs, and it's a little bit different across each province. But yes, so that if a childcare operator wants to open a space, they first have to get the ability to have the number of children through their license, and then they also can apply for funding as well. There's the space creation grant through the province right now. It's a portion of what they would need in terms of a dollar per child. So it doesn't cover the full amount, but yeah, it's currently the province is the one that's funding it, and then usually the child care providers are having to fund it through other sources, whether that's fees to parents or if they're able to raise money some other way.
So is that program working, the $10 a day program the implemented by the province, correct? Is it working? Can you give us a sense that it is working with the daycare centers in the city?
I think there have been challenges across the entire country regarding the implementation of it, but I would say that the benefits have definitely outweighed the challenges in terms of access to childcare for parents. I know there are some challenges for the childcare operators in terms of making ends meet at the end of the day with essentially they're capped at the amount of fees that they can charge parents to implement those $10 a day. So I would say there's definitely challenges, but there are a lot of benefits that have come out of that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Well, I have several questions, but I see Councillor Schmidt-Rempel is in the queue, so I'll allow her to go first.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you both very much for bringing this forward and for undertaking this study, and I certainly appreciate the childcare facilities that are here in the audience today to hear on this. When we look at the full-time position, so just for clarification, the level 3 service that we're looking at wouldn't come forward until the 2028-2031 operating budget deliberations, correct?
Correct.
So we are looking at the level 3 coming forward in a number of years from here, right? Okay. During that time, though, we will be working on basically the level 1 requirements, which are our land use bylaw, making sure that we're considering childcare activities and youth initiatives in all of our land use. Correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So just to explain service level 1 in a little bit more detail, that service level is what we're able to do with the projects and the funding that is currently available across a
And that's what
multitude of
we're
different
doing right now,
departments.
right?
Yeah, and they're able to be added on to what we're doing. Some actions we're not currently doing, but are able to, with the current resources we have, move forward with those. Service level 3 would then be that next step on a number of actions. And in the matrix, it has a breakdown of the number of actions that are fully actionable, which ones are partially actionable, and which ones are not actionable under that, the resourcing for that service level. And service level 3 is the one that, in our recommendation, gives the city the best bang for the buck in terms of dollars that are allocated, but outputs that are achieved.
And that would come forward at the 2028 budget deliberations?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And to your question, until that time, if council does approve the implementation of it, the city would be able to work on service level 1 in the meantime.
Okay. And then just for clarification on that, if we looked at approving that and we're service level 3, which would be in 2028, that position would be shared across departments for youth and child care initiatives, correct? Knowing that we just had a motion that came forward with regards to youth prevention programs. We have this, we have the CWSS study that we looked at, we have the student retention policy that we looked at, all of them having a need for some kind of youth engagement and initiative at the City of Lethbridge level. That position would then be spread and be able to work on all of those initiatives that the City of Lethbridge can be working on.
Yeah, that's correct. The goal with that position would be to make sure that we are getting as much as we're able to out of that. And it would be within one department, but they would be able to work with and strategize with multiple departments on all of these initiatives going forward related to youth outcomes.
And we don't have anybody in that position working on youth and childcare initiatives at this time, do we?
That's correct. Currently, there is no resourcing specifically dedicated to youth outcomes.
Okay, and this is under the purview of the City of Lethbridge. It does not cross over into the other lanes of provincial or federal avenues?
No, that's also correct. All of these recommendations are things that the city has control over.
Okay, I'll step out for now.
Thank you. So, I'll start off with a couple. First off, are the childcare placements targeted at employees' children or children in general?
That would likely be on a individual basis for each childcare operator in terms of how they.
So we're not developing a program here that's going to assist the roughly 1,800 employees of the City of Lethbridge specifically?
No, not specifically.
Okay. How many spaces are needed?
Just give me one moment to pull it up in the report. So the current coverage rate that the city has, and I guess I'll back up and go to last year when we were looking at the numbers. I believe it was about 620 more spaces to reach that, what the province considers as adequate childcare coverage, which is one space for every 3 children under the age of 6.
So we estimated in 2023 that we would need 600
more spaces in the city to reach
more
that.
spaces.
Yeah.
Is that predicated on demand, meaning that there are parents out there or grandparents who say, we need a space for our child and we can't find one?
The way that that number is calculated is based off of the census population data from the federal government, and then the number of spaces that we have, and that's how the calculation is formed. The rationale for that 33%, the province uses a study that was completed by, I can't remember what the organization was, but they found that 33% is sort of the minimum that a municipality would have to have for a coverage rate to offer enough childcare for the community. Other communities are finding that they actually need to go higher than that 33%, but that having one space for every 3 children, the other 2 children that don't have a space, they would probably be taken care of by another parent or private other options like nannies or.
Okay, so is that contemplated in the numbers? I mean, I have gone through daycare with my 4 children. I've gone through daycare with 7 grandchildren. So I've got a pretty good understanding for how this works. At the end of the day, many children go into day homes and so forth. So how is that accommodated in those numbers?
So the numbers are only licensed spots. So if there is an unlicensed day home, they wouldn't be calculated in that number, which is why it is a 33%, because there are, there's definitely more spaces in a community than what is licensed. Like there are unlicensed day homes, there's nannies.
I'm sorry, can you try that again?
Sure. The 33% number uses licensed spots within a community.
Yep.
But there are more unlicensed spots that increase that number.
Okay, and
So
again,
that it isn't included within that number. So there is a little bit of uncertainty in terms of the true amount of coverage that a community has when you factor in licensed spots and unlicensed spots.
so help me try and understand this. There's 620 children that don't currently have public space, but they may be able to access private space.
Yes,
And
possibly.
we don't know
And
what that number might be.
That's correct. And so you compare other numbers with this, like number of available spots across the community and wait list numbers. So even last year, we needed 620 spaces to reach that 33%. What we found since then is that we have actually increased the number of spaces in the community. We have a coverage rate of 34%.
Yeah, but we actually don't have 620 placements that are required. That's predicated on population. We don't know that there are 620 families out there that are looking for spaces for their children.
That's correct. And so if we also look at the number of wait lists, we are at the adequate level that the province is looking for in a community, but our wait lists across every childcare operator that we've talked to are still quite high.
Okay, so it could be higher or lower. We really don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so could we find that out?
It would be likely difficult. We would have to survey unlicensed day homes, and if they're unlicensed, it can be difficult to know that they're even operating. And that's where you can take these numbers and pair them with other data like wait lists to see what the true demand is in a community. And I would say it's likely that the demand is still quite high, even though we're at an adequate coverage rate, just because the wait lists across all the childcare providers are still high.
So not to diminish the importance of this for the individual families, but is 620 a lot for a city of 110,000 people?
Yes, I would say, especially considering like if a childcare operator operates 50 spaces for each facility, that's quite a few facilities that need to be built to reach or I guess address those 620 spaces.
Okay. How do we determine economic benefits to the community based on the investment? Page 3 of 128 indicates that $1 that is invested, presumably by various levels of government, provides a return of $1.5 to $2.8. So how are we calculating that?
That is a figure that was found through a number of studies and is supported by the federal government in their findings as well. So it wasn't a figure that the city developed, but it is one that is nationally recognized. So there are, depending on what you invest in and the type of work that you're doing, it could be higher or lower. it would be difficult to actually pinpoint what the economic benefit would be. So this is more of a range and an estimate.
Why include it? It seems to be confusing. Okay, where's the government of Canada on this?
On childcare in general, or?
In terms of, we do. Last question. So the government of Canada, the provincial government are both actively involved in providing funding for childcare, correct? So we've heard about the $10 a day. All right. Is it a stumbling block in terms of being able to access funding and or providing space in the process that we have to go through with the provincial government and the federal government in order to access those dollars?
I would say the perspective of the federal government and the provincial government, at least the representatives that I've had the chance to talk to, their perspective is that municipalities, what they're finding is that it's coming down to how willing municipalities are to make changes on their end. They can only do so much with the powers that they have. And at the local level, especially when it comes to land use and lobbying and things like that, if a municipality has a lot of restrictions, no matter what the province and the federal government does, it would be difficult to realize improvements in the community. And so all three levels need to be working together to address these challenges.
Okay. I'll jump out, and Councillor Parker looks like he has some questions.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the answer, because Ms. Klissinger, I'm going to ask you the question then is, what the province and the federal government has stated, and tell me if I'm paraphrasing you incorrectly here, is we really want the municipality to make sure that the appropriate zoning, and there's flexible zoning, so when funds do come through, there's an ability to have appropriate daycare facilities in our community. Is that what I heard?
That's correct.
Perfect. So in the end of the day, in regards to jurisdictions, and from what I heard in the answers, the province has certain guidelines. I heard the term, the province has guidelines and targets for municipalities. So by that answer in itself, it sounds like funding of daycare, childcare is a provincial responsibility of some sort. And am I correct on that?
That's correct. They are responsible for the funding of spaces. When it comes to the funding of things like land use bylaw updates, that would be us.
So we all have a role in this, and based on the report here, we all have a different role here. Can someone explain to me, when we're adding to the bureaucracy of the city of Lethbridge, what this person is? Because when you add a person to the city of Lethbridge, they're in there. They're in there, and until it gets taken out through resolution or through the direction of the city manager or the general manager, tell me what we're going to get for $150,000.
That would be within the different service levels. So if each one has a little bit different. There's one, I believe the service level 2 has a term position, and then 3 and on have a full-time position. The actions that would be fully actionable with a term position or a full-time position would be included within there. So there is quite a bit of detail to go through, but generally speaking, I would say there would be a more focused effort on improving a lot of these things.
Sorry, that's very vague. You focus, focus, what do you mean by focus?
So right now, childcare is not I wouldn't say it's not a priority, but it isn't something that's specifically being looked at by every department. And so by having that person every day, they would be responsible for advancing a lot of these initiatives. And so if there was something related to planning and development or community social development, or even within Lethbridge Land, having that one person responsible for tracking these initiatives, making sure that they're being actioned in a timely manner, that's really what they would be doing. They would also be adding capacity to complete some of these things, just because we, as an organization, don't have the capacity to go through and say, for example, one of these is conduct an in-depth study to examine the social and geographical context to better understand which neighborhoods have the greatest childcare needs. We don't, as an organization, have capacity to complete that right now. And so a term or a full-time position would be able to action that. The findings from something like that would then be able to be used by other departments to better inform the decisions that they were making.
is it also fair to state that the private sector, whoever the developer, it's also their responsibility to fill the void when need be, when there is a need?
I would agree. There's a responsibility of private and government and not-for-profit.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schmidt-Rubble.
Thank you very much. Based on this study, the results show that Lethbridge is considered a childcare desert, correct?
As per the numbers that we had previously, that's correct. As of today, the numbers that we have access to show that we are right at that threshold to no longer be considered a desert. But if there is a decrease in the amount of spaces created year over year, because it is tied to population, so every time our population increases, we need the number of childcare spaces to increase. If that doesn't happen, then we fall behind. So I would say right now, we're not considered a childcare desert anymore, but without due diligence and making sure that we're tracking things, it would be easy for the community to fall back into that classification.
Okay. And when we look at licensed versus unlicensed childcare, way to go. There are certainly clear benefits to adequate high-quality childcare for children and families in our community. Can you speak a little bit to that? Because that does speak to the return on investment. So when we look at licensed versus unlicensed, we want to make sure that we are getting the best childcare for our residents. So can you speak to some of the clear benefits of adequate high-quality childcare for children and families, specifically how that relates to improving our society, making sure our economy is moving along, and what that return on investment looks like for our city?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I'd refer to a lot of the information that was provided in the engagement summary. The parents that we're hearing from that aren't able to access childcare, they're finding that they either have to stay home with their kids, one of the parents do, or if they're a single parent, they don't even really have that option, so they have to find other forms of childcare. Usually that's then going to unlicensed options or nannies, or sometimes they can find grandparents or other family members to help them out. But what we're finding is that because we don't have enough spaces and the wait lists are quite large, there are families that are having to make those difficult decisions financially of, do we lose a source of income for our family, or do we pay a very large sum to put our childcare or our child into childcare? And so there is an economic benefit to the community in having adequate number of childcare spaces purely based on a labor participation rate. But then there's also benefits to mental health, where people feel like their children are safe and in a childcare facility that meets their needs. We heard from the one individual that spoke just before we did that there is a lack of childcare for children with special needs as well, because when there isn't enough spaces, childcare operators are tending to choose the children that need less work because they're already overworked as it is, so taking on a child with special or higher needs can be difficult. So there's many facets of how this impacts the community economically. We've heard from a number of large businesses in the community as well that they've even thought of opening their own childcare facilities because they're finding it difficult to attract employees to Lethbridge, because if those employees have a family and young children, they need to get on a wait list to get into a childcare facility. But a lot of our wait lists are between 1 to 3 years, depending on the operator that you ask. So someone moving to Lethbridge is then having to forego one person's income if they're a couple, or they can't even move to Lethbridge to make that decision because they need childcare as soon as they get here, not a year out.
So it is an economic driver for our city.
Oui.
Okay. And then just one final question on this. Are unlicensed facilities subsidized?
No.
No. So if somebody went to an unlicensed facility, they would be paying the full amount. They wouldn't be getting the government subsidized childcare.
Correct.
And I see Ms. Patrick Kolb in the background and our childcare person, nodding at that. So the disadvantage of that is that they would pay a full amount, which would be significantly higher than our licensed facilities.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
Well, our crashing. Oh, hang on just a minute. It's about to crash. So we're going to take a 5-minute break before we get into debate. Thank you. Looks like we are back and ready. I see no further questions from the gallery. Thank you very much for your attention and your responses to the questions. We can well, hang on just a minute. We have somebody out there in the crowd who's now interested in coming forward. Oh, well, it's highly irregular.
For response. And, oh, Mr. Campbell, thank you. If you don't mind, if I could take a few minutes to respond to Councillor Campbell's question about advocacy. 2 minutes. Got it. Okay. So just to give a bit of context around the childcare landscape in Alberta, and that is that Alberta is one of the provinces that has the most for-profit or private childcare centres in Canada. When the government, the federal government in 2022 announced the billions of dollars of federal transfer funding to provinces, which of course included Alberta, that funding was to be used only for not-for-profit childcare at that time. Now, over the last few years, they've opened the program in Alberta to include private facilities to be licensed and to have access to what is the affordability grant for parents. So when we talk about $10 a day childcare, we're talking about the affordability grant. In Alberta, we're not at $10 a day yet. We don't expect to be at $10 a day based on the provincial decisions and announcements to be at $10 a day until 2026. So that's one piece of what I would encourage council to be involved in with regard to advocacy. Because as we know, as provincial governments change, and ultimately next year potentially as federal government change, the program that allows for the affordability grant funding for people to access childcare for half of what they used to might actually not exist anymore. So that would be one piece where I would encourage perhaps council or the municipality to be advocating, to indicate that this is important funding. It's required for the health of all of our regions, and childcare is simply unaffordable for people to have without the affordability grant funding, which is made available by the federal grant transfer. The other thing I wanted to mention here is the biggest barrier right now to childcare space creation for operators. The first, in my opinion, in my experience at the YMCA, is the capital cost to open a childcare center. So another piece of that advocacy to our provincial government would be to take that federal transfer funding and to increase the amount of money that a licensed childcare center could access to create new spaces. They're offering in childcare deserts up to $6,000 a space. The actual cost is $40,000 generally per space. So at the YMCA, we often talk about childcare because we deliver a lot of childcare to recognize childcare as a service. It's not a business. Based on the federal grant that has been transferred, we cannot raise parent fees more than 3% per year. As you know, in the last couple of years, we had inflationary environments that are much larger than that. So childcare operators, regardless if they're private or not, to be competitive if they're private, they're not actually making a good deal of money. And so I think that would be another piece of the advocacy I would encourage council to be thinking about in advocacy to our provincial government. We require more money for capital space creation. It's too expensive. So I couldn't reasonably, as an organization, take out a loan for $500,000 or $1 million when I can't increase my fees more than 3%, and I've paid out of pocket now $35,000 per childcare space to create that childcare center. So I just wanted to give that context of what is the barriers right now for operators based on the environment that we're in. So while the federal transfer was appreciated, the federal program very appreciated in terms of reducing fees for parents, it's also creating an immense pressure on operators, whether or not they are private or not for profit. And the other piece I wanted to bring to that too is that the federal government is right now preparing to release details related to childcare space creation money available by the federal government that will be for not-for-profit providers only. The YMCA, provincially and federally, we advocate with the governments, as the case may be, around use of these funds or what these programs look like. And we are prepared as YMCAs in the Federation to deliver that letter to Minister Jenna Sudds to ask that they include municipalities and school divisions in the new fund creation dollars that are going to be available, because we see them as important partners in community development and childcare creation.
Thank you. I have one comment.
If I could, just wanted to quickly ask you, well, you're saying we're not at $10 a day right now. What are we at?
The average in Alberta is 15 a day.
15 a day.
And that's the average depending on where you live and the region you're in.
Okay, thanks.
And depending on whether or not you're at a private or not-for-profit childcare center.
Great, thanks. Thanks for that update information. Thank you.
Just a clarification point. You indicated that funding may not be available next year because of a federal election. I think you would agree that it may also still be available.
Oh, sorry. If my comment was meant that way, I meant the program could be at risk regardless of what government is elected, right? So if
it may also not be at risk. It may be modified as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But what you're saying is advocacy is an important component.
That's right. Provincially and federally in this case.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Debate? We're in for debate.
I see.
Can we split it? Debate, okay.
All right. I don't see anybody in the queue yet.
I request that we vote on this separately. Thank you, David. I just request that we would vote on this separately if possible. I don't know if we have to vote on that or just Mr. No. Sorry, okay.
So you're asking,
to vote on one and then vote on two separately.
so he wants to, that's a friendly amendment, though, is it not?
No, it's just a divide motion.
Just a divide?
Okay.
Well, it's going to council anyway.
Yeah.
Divided
How do you know it's going to council? Oh, no, because if it's defeated, it doesn't go to council.
Yes, it does.
Oh, it does? Okay, okay, okay,
Whatever the recommendation is.
okay.
It'll go to consent.
Okay.
Yeah, it just goes as an unsupported motion, that's all. Still goes.
Yes, David.
Okay, so we are now, I don't particularly care. It's Councillor
No, it's fine.
Parker's. So divide, no divide.
That's fine. No divide's fine.
No divide. Okay, now we go into debate. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, if you'd like to open debate, this is your motion. Away you go.
Thank you. So this resolution was born out of an information update regarding Phase 3 of the crossings that we received earlier this year from Opportunity Lethbridge. In that update, it was outlined that 2 residential lots in the northeast corner of Halifax and Abitibi roads were identified for and set aside for suitable for neighborhood childcare facilities. That was a proactive step taken by our administration to identify and dedicate an area within the residential portion of the crossings community for the development of childcare facilities. The information we received today out of this report clearly speaks to the benefits of having the opportunity for quality, affordable, and accessible childcare in our community should a caregiver choose. However, in addition, and anecdotally over the past year, I've heard from community stakeholders supporting newcomers to the community, the YWCA, the YMCA reps, Lethbridge College reps, student reps at the University of Lethbridge, Lethbridge Chamber, and Economic Development Lethbridge, that a lack of childcare and affordable childcare in our community is preventing caregivers, who are largely women, from accessing English language programs, educational and employment opportunities. And that lack of childcare is also creating a barrier to access for other opportunities and services for many in our community. What it is doing is it's preventing people from getting jobs. It's preventing people from getting out into the community, from preventing people from engaging with this community, and preventing people from being fully able to participate in everything that our community offers. Also identified by the provincial government, there is now a focus on building capacity in licensed childcare with the Space Creation Grant that will help enable up to 68,000 total new licensed spaces to be created by 2026. Further, the Alberta and Canadian Chambers of Commerce have recently both put forward policies calling on the Alberta and Canadian governments to ensure adequate quality childcare spaces are available for caregivers, further setting the stage for more caregivers, again, particularly women. Women are the caregivers in the family, to re-enter the workforce. Our Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce was ahead of the pack, identifying this issue on its own in a local policy called the Economics of Childcare in 2020. We know that most of our neighborhoods are home to young and growing families, and that there is a need for easily accessible childcare in those neighborhoods. And in 2021, the census and 2022 childcare spaces data, that shows the city is currently about 620 spaces short of minimum number of childcare spaces that should be available within the community. Ongoing annual funding for an individual, which this motion looks at forwarding, that annual funding wouldn't be discussed or even considered until the 2028-2031 operating budget deliberations. That's quite a ways down the road. But if we do look at that and we do consider approving that, it does fill a gap in considering child and youth and their importance in our community. And that does that. That's what we need to do. We need to be looking at children and youth and their families. This ensures that children, youth, and their families are considered and can participate fully in our community. It only benefits our city, particularly given the large child poverty rates that we are seeing in this community. I would ask for council's support on this, and that would be the close of my debate.
Go. Councillor Parker.
Thank you very much. And I want to, first of all, thank Councillor Schmidt-Rempel for this resolution. I greatly appreciate her advocacy on this. I think we all agree that childcare, unless you have kids, like I had 2 boys and going through childcare, and I'll put a plug out to my childcare, Aslan Daycare. Like they were like a second family to us. And I know firsthand the importance of childcare, both at the childcare, like day homes are different too. And there's a need for day homes, and we need to make sure that we have appropriate day homes in our community as well. But we also have to realize what we can and cannot control. And I think it's important that not only if this resolution, but there's resolution passes or doesn't pass, or however it's changed in the future, but we as a council have to give direction to our administration through policy and through resolution to do more. And if we can do that through zoning, and I'm really encouraged by what I heard from Ms. Gehring in regards to new subdivisions, because I know in the past when you had an old house that was, I'll use the one example on McMaster, when that was the one on McMaster and Temple, how there was so much pushback because it was an infill idea and people were scared and concerned, and they were concerned about the traffic. But we have to worry, we also have to understand that we're going to have to fill those needs in those infill areas because it's a huge thing. And we as a council are going to be at the end of the day, we as council are going to be the ones that make those decisions in regards to how much value we put on that, at the same time being respectful of the neighbors. So there's a lot of things that we as a council, when I say we as council, but when I say that holistically, we as a group, this is a committee, there's a lot of things that we need to do and we have to give direction, especially as we grow out in this community, both on the north side, west side, and south side, because we're growing close to 1 to 2% a year. People are coming to Lethbridge. I'd actually have to say that women are not the only people that take care of kids. Men do too. And I think it's important that we recognize the role that both people do. We understand that moms do a lot of work, and I'll also be the first one to say it, but it's a partnership. It's a partnership in raising, but actually it's a community that helps raise a family. And you know that I don't want to use the cliche, it takes a village and all that, but we as a community, the YMCA plays a role in raising our children. You know, the Boys and Girls Club plays a huge role. The Big Brothers and Big Sisters does a huge role. But I think it's important that we don't get ahead of ourselves on the $150,000. I know that that's going to be in the budget, but if it's passed by council, it gives it almost of an endorsement to budget. And I believe there's a lot of things that we can achieve outside of the 150. And I was reassured that through Ms. Slovak and her team that we are going to do a lot in the stage one. But I think it's important that council actually start passing some future resolutions to give even more direction to our administration. So I will not be supporting this, and I'll explain it more when it goes to council. That's why I was wanting to be divided, because I could support the first one, but I couldn't support the second point. So I believe that we have a long way to go, but I don't think the $150,000 solves it, and I'm concerned about adding more staff and more bureaucracy to the city. I'm not saying adding more bureaucracy isn't a bad thing, but until I have a better understanding of what that individual or that person is going to do, I can't support that part. So I won't be supporting the resolution in its entirety.
David, thank you. Councillor Acting Mayor Campbell.
Thank you. I'm not going to add much more to what Councillor Schmidt-Rempel said. We're in a crisis right now with childcare in the city. Anything that we can do proactively enables this to be a greater community and more attractive community to live in. So I will, in fact, support the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I have some questions that haven't been answered, and I have concerns about those questions. What are we going to get for the $151,000 plus $50,000 in one-time costs? That's $151,000 going forward. It's not 1 year. It's going forward. It's a full-time employment. 620 children. This is not placements needed. I would like to know how many actual placements are required in the city. That's children. That's not placements required. It doesn't contemplate day homes. It suggests that day homes somehow do not provide value. I think that's incorrect. I think day homes are a necessary piece of this overall very complex puzzle. How do we determine economic benefits? I'm not sure that we have been adequately informed how that provides economic benefits. It's a lesser of my concerns, to be sure, but it is still something that I think needs to be addressed. There was an indication that there are no subsidies, and thank you very much for that information for day homes. But day homes, I think you will admit, are generally cheaper than public facilities. That's been my experience. Also because they are more readily available than public space. Lastly, I'm not going to get overly concerned about this, but having been a single parent, I agree with Councillor Parker that yes, women are primary caregivers, but there are a lot of men out there that have to work and have to take care of their children as well, and daycare is one of the only ways in which they can do it. I'm not sure that this is fully vetted. And in the result, I'm not prepared to vote in favor of this moving forward. I would like to see this to become much more robust by the time it gets to council, and I would be more than happy to contemplate any amendments or any additional information at that time. And we've now had the debate. We can now call the vote. Well, the mover has an opportunity to close. There she does, of course.
I think I stated everything in my opening debate, so I will call for the vote.
Okay. All those in favor? And those opposed? The motion is defeated. However, it will be going to council at a future council meeting as an unsupported initiative. Thank you. Yeah, 6.3.
So all you have to read is this there for a part.
All right. Unless I want to read the whole thing. No. The next is the Downtown Lawlessness Reduction Task Force recommendation, Community Clean and Safe Strategy Steering Committee. Mr. City Clerk has advised that, therefore, be it resolved that the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee recommend that Council accelerate the priority of the Downtown Clean and Safe Strategy from 2026 to start upon budget approval in November 2024. Appoint the Downtown Lawlessness Reduction Task Force as the steering committee for a review and update the community clean and safe strategy, and finally, forward any funding requests associated with this program to budget discussions in November. Acting Mayor Campbell.
Just a question. Do we have any sense of what kind of a budget request this is going to be?
I think that would be up to the Lawlessness Task Force to come up with that over the summertime based on some of the ideas I think that they're going to put forward. But there would be a B, C type package of how much it could be. It could be anything from just a few quick recommendations to adding a contracted position. So I think that that will be done in the next few months to decide.
So this is just basically, this is a resolution to fast track the just get it started so we can vote on it, basically is what you're saying. Is that correct?
Yeah, in Council's action plan, the Downtown Clean and Safe strategy is set to not begin until 2026. So just based on workload of the department and some of the other work that they're doing. And so what this would do is they could choose to do it sooner, but knowing that there would be resources that need to be allocated to get it done faster.
And Councillor Middleton Hope, you're on that. You chair that committee, correct? You chair the committee, or you're on the committee?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
I do not chair the committee. No.
But you're on the committee.
I am.
Yeah, I'm just. I mean, the support for this, I would imagine, since it's come from that committee, is overwhelming with that group.
Well, I would never characterize anything as overwhelming.
I guess the question.
I would suggest that the placement has been recommended by various participants, as well as administration, in terms of how this is going to be managed and the need to accelerate funding for this particular program.
Okay, so that, I mean, that the key word is the need to accelerate it. That's the important part of this.
I think that's what Ms. Kleisinger has said, that there is a need to accelerate the program simply because of the workload demand on the clean and safe strategy. And this is a venue that has been recommended to move it forward.
Okay.
Do I characterize that accurately, Ms. Kleisinger? Before we move, thank you, Acting Mayor Campbell. Before we move forward, is there anyone in the audience who would like to address this particular motion? We usually provide that opportunity to members of the public. Sometimes we do it after the first couple of questions. Sometimes we do it at the beginning. It's supposed to be done at the beginning. Some of us have lapses in memory. Okay, move on to the next one. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This just looks to me, and if you, Chair, could answer this, or Ms. Kleisinger, does this mean that the update to the clean and safe strategy would be done by the end of this year, or would it be moving into next year?
It would be moving into next year, so it would be completed probably end of Q2 2025 versus starting in 2026.
Okay, then I would like to, if I may, make a motion that we forward this to a governance SPC. As per our procedure bylaw, Part 4, Section 23B, it seems like the Downtown Lawlessness Reduction Task Force will no longer be established in a short-term venue. So since we're not going to maintain that short term of it, where it would be reviewed and ended at the end of 2024, I'd like to see it move to the governance SPC in order that we can establish this for a more longer term, again, as per our procedure bylaw, and then that we can ensure that this group has the proper review, the proper support, and everything that it needs to be successful for long-term continuation until we solve those issues that are going on in our downtown core.
So I'll respond to one portion of that with a question. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, you indicated that, and please don't let me mischaracterize this, but you're indicating that there is a problem with referring the community clean and safe strategy to the Downtown Lawlessness Reduction Task Force. Do I understand that?
No.
Okay, so perhaps you can repeat it then.
Yeah, no, what I'd like to do is refer this motion to the governance SPC so that first we can have the Downtown Lawlessness Reduction Task Force established for success. So if you're taking on this kind of work, you need budget, you need to have the terms of reference reviewed, and we need to be able to promote participation within the groups and making sure that you're set up for long-term success. And because it's no longer a shorter term kind of issue that we're seeing in our downtown, it does need to be established as per our procedure bylaw, and that's under Part 4, Section 23B.
I'm wondering if Ms. Kleisinger has anything to add.
Well, I think what Councillor Schmidt-Rempel is saying that when this was initially, when the Lawlessness Task Force initially came to be, it was meant to be short-term, but if SPC chooses to approve this new direction, we would be asking the task force to stay on as a steering committee, but we're not going to be able to start this process right away. So I think that piece makes sense if we were to approve this motion, because we're not going to start this right away because we'll need to wait and to see if there's going to be any funding in November.
And this gives the governance task force then an opportunity to work through any concerns that people might have had and to establish the task force with a more solid footing and also pop it into the BCC's procedure.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's the Governance Standing Policy Committee that will establish the longevity of the Downtown Lawlessness Reduction Task Force. That's Council's decision.
No, I believe that falls as per the procedure bylaw, that falls under the governance task force. The governance task force forms.
If the governance task force does not want to move this forward, then it fails. It's council that makes that decision.
Well, it would move forward to council then, right? After the governance task force, it moves forward to council for discussion.
Okay. I'm sorry?
Yep, David,
Yes,
please.
please, David.
I don't often get a chance to speak, but so I'll take the opportunity this time. So when the resolution was passed to establish the terms of reference for the downtown lawlessness, that was back in December of 2023. What they did is they approved the terms of reference, and they said in the terms of reference that it's subject to review by the end of December 2023. I'm sorry, 2024. So they said establish it with it to be viewed prior to December 31st, 2024. So that's actually City Council's job. Okay. So it can go to SPCs or whoever else, but ultimately it's the decision of council. So, so whether or not this motion is passed or recommended to be passed or not, council will still determine what the role of downtown lawlessness is task force beyond the end of this year, and it may include such tasks as this, or it may not. So if I could be so bold to offer a recommendation.
Just a question.
Okay.
In regards to this motion, is this motion premature?
I don't think this motion is premature.
Motion, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel's resolution or John's?
So the original.
I'm not making a motion.
So the original motion is not premature. You can still deal with it. And what you may wish to do is just take this as part of the review of the downtown lawlessness, because it was stated that it's not going to be undertaken until 2025. So at that time, you will know what the role of downtown lawlessness is and what form it will take, if it takes any form at all. And so this particular task could still be assigned to another group if downtown lawlessness does not continue, or if it does continue, council can decide to include it as part of their terms of reference. So I think it gives you more options to let this resolution go forth if you decide to, in whatever form. And when the downtown lawlessness terms of reference does get reviewed on its purpose, then you can decide other tasks associated with it. So I don't know if that's helpful, but it's a start.
You have a way of confusing things, David. I just want you to know that. Do you have a comment? No. Okay. So
I would still like to see it referred so that we can be at least moving forward in either setting this up or having council review it. Since it's going to be reviewed at the end of the year anyway, this gets it onto a next agenda of the governance task force, or of the governance SPC, at least earlier, because we wouldn't be then reviewing the priority of the downtown clean and safe strategy prior to the budget in November 2024. So this would still move that to 2024, but this would move a review of the task force to a next governance committee meeting.
When is the next governance?
he's just looking it up.
Oh, okay, that's what's going to be my question.
Yeah,
So
it's
the
September.
next governance committee is October 24th.
So it puts it before, so there would be a council meeting that could discuss it then as well, and then it would also move to the budget.
So if it moves to committee, to the governance SPC, that actually occurs after the city council meeting that would occur prior to that in October? Yeah. So
it depends on what the resolution would be. If, for instance, that particular referral could take different forms. It could be, we currently have 3 particular points, and the 4th point could be, and refer that to governance SPC, or is it the whole thing is going to governance SPC? Is it a referral motion of the entire thing, or is it just adding it as a point number 4? It could be either way.
Well, it
so
would
we
be-
just look at the therefores. We don't care about the whereases.
So move. Could
So
we
if you
just
can
move
move
up to the
down?
therefore?
Just therefore is the only part that's relevant.
Okay. So accelerate the priority of the downtown clean and safe strategy from 2026 to start upon budget approval in November 2024. Item 1. Appoint the Downtown Lawlessness Reduction Task Force as the steering committee for a review and update of the clean and safe strategy. 3, forward any funding requests associated with this program to budget discussions in November. So what areas do you have a concern about?
No, it's not a concern. It's just making sure the task force is set up for success, that if it does move forward to do this, it's able to move forward to do this in a successful manner. So it is referring it to a governance standing policy committee.
So we just
This is
we just need to see the therefore. So just keep it focused on that if you don't mind. So what is the actual resolution you're asking?
To move this resolution forward to the governance standing policy committee so that we can also discuss the task force to make sure that the task force has everything it needs in place to continue past the end of 2024, and that it is set up as a long-term task force as per our bylaw part 4, our procedure bylaw part 4, section 23B. So that it is set up for a longer term, because we're moving past the end of the term of its review. So it's not, so we don't interrupt its work. If you want to keep working, we need to look at it so we're not interrupting its work.
But we're looking at no matter what, from what I heard from Mr. Seaver.
But we could interrupt its work then. You might get the approval in November, and then your work is interrupted if council decides, no, we're not going to move the task force forward, and then the task force doesn't work on clean and safe strategy anymore, and the clean and safe strategy is left hanging.
it needs to find a home.
Yeah, so this is trying to be proactive
Okay.
in setting up the Downtown Lawlessness Task Force.
So my concern, Mr. City Clerk, would be in terms of timing, does the Governance Standing Policy Committee occur before the next City Council meeting?
No.
It does not. So is it, are we in reverse order?
Yeah, the governance isn't until October.
Right. But council occurs before that.
Yeah, next week,
And if we approve this, it would go to
No, it
council.
would be the first council meeting in September.
September.
Yeah, it would be a council meeting in September.
And council ultimately decides what the fate of either one of these are, whether the Downtown Losses Reduction Task Force and the Clean and Safe Strategy, where it's going to be housed. So council makes that decision.
Council would, but I forward it to the governance task force because they are responsible for the governance of our BCCs.
Go ahead. Come on, David.
Sorry. So what I'm hearing, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, is not actually the motion on there. What it is just a referral for the motion. That's all it is. It's just a referral to the governance committee.
For this motion.
Yeah, that's all it is. So that's all we vote on is the referral. So, and if you vote on, I'm just telling you what your options are. Doesn't mean you have to do one or the other. I'm just telling you what you are. If your motion is to refer it to governance, it will go directly there without going to council. Governance will look at it and make a decision and make a recommendation, which would then go to council. Alternatively, if you defeat the referral motion, this motion in some form will then go to council to make a decision on. So those, I think, are your two choices.
Point of clarification.
Oh, God.
If this goes to governance SPC, which occurs after a city council meeting, it would be in the latter part of October. How does that butt up against budget discussions? Because there would be a request, I presume, for some form of funding long-term.
So I don't know if council has actually set dates for budget. Have they, Carly? I'm sorry, I don't know that.
Yeah, we did. We did at the Economic SPC.
You-
We did at the Economic
Did you? Okay, I'm
SPC.
not aware of what dates you picked.
Couldn't you do it so we send this to council, and then Councilor Schmidt-Rempel can then ask for it at the council meeting to be sent to governance?
Well, I don't know why you would do that.
Yeah,
If you-
that's just an extra layer.
It is. I mean, either you make a decision that it goes to governance, or you say it goes to council. And
Just looking at the
the
economic-
budgetary implications should be considered, and the timing of it.
I think the timing works though, because I looked at that. I'm just looking at.
Well, again,
So do you know dates, Ms. Klessinger, or someone down there?
There was the motion of council last week to add the November 13th at 9:30 a.m. and then also change economic on the 14th to 9:30 a.m.
Okay.
So there would be a chance for it to come to council before it came to the budget.
Yeah. So either way, you're welcome to do.
procedurally, and perhaps we could address procedurally, the options are to do either or. Is that correct, Mr. Sarsfield?
Correct.
Okay, and from an administrative perspective, are there advantages or disadvantages that you're willing to share with us?
I think you know what they are.
I think I've heard them. All right. So then we have the motion before us.
What is the motion?
Well, the motion is as stated.
To refer it.
Oh, hang on.
So the motion is just to refer it, period. So if we could just take a 5-minute recess, that'd be great.
He needs to have a look at this. Okay, good. We'll take a 5-minute recess. time, by the way. Hey, I got a meeting coming up. All right, so we have a referral motion from Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Be it resolved that the resolution, we're only voting on the referral motion, correct? Be it resolved that the resolution be referred to the October 24th, 2024 meeting of the Governance Standing Policy Committee. Those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. Those opposed? Okay, so it's been referred.
Yeah, so now we're on to the next one.
So now it's referred to governance.
Correct.
Correct? All right, on the 2024 meeting. All right. Okay, next one. Downtown Lawlessness Reduction Task Force Graffiti Abatement Recommendation. Be it resolved that the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee recommend that Council provide one-time 2024 funding of $51,562 to extend the graffiti abatement strategy. And further be it resolved that the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee forward graffiti abatement strategy initiative funding for consideration at the November 2024 operating budget deliberations. I have a question prior to it going to the mover of Ms. Kleisinger.
Are we going to ask for statements from the public first?
No. I'm going to ask Ms. Kleisinger in regards to extend the graffiti abatement strategy. Is that time or space? No, it's space.
You're saying area?
Yes.
What are you asking?
Hello? I'm asking, in the motion, it says extend the graffiti abatement strategy. My understanding from the task force and specifically from the BRZ was to extend the zone to include the city.
That's correct.
This is not clear. It says extend the graffiti abatement strategy. Does it mean time and space, or does it mean money?
I'm not sure because that came from the Lawlessness Task Force. That didn't come from administration.
Then I think we need to. I think we need to clarify it. It is space, right? But I think we need to clarify it. Does everybody understand it that it's space to go? Okay. So what the motion was from the task force was to extend the graffiti abatement strategy from the downtown BRZ zone to the city, private property of the city, or within the city.
No question.
That is a statement, actually. So, Mr. City Clerk, we need to amend that, the motion.
So that could be just friendly, eh?
It would be a friendly to Councillor Parker. Yep.
From the task force, can we amend it?
Sure, because the task force provides a recommendation
Okay.
which you can choose to amend,
Okay.
agree to, or say
Decline.
no to.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So that would be the request of a friendly. Go ahead. Question?
So the motion would be, it's not to the private property, it is to extend beyond the boundaries of the downtown BRZ.
Right.
Sorry.
Yep. Beyond the boundaries of the downtown BRZ.
That's kind of vague.
Because right now the program is limited to within the boundaries of the downtown BRZ, and there's certain criteria that they use before they will undertake it. So if it's a private building, for instance, someone did graffiti on your house or your business or whatever it happens to be, they just won't go ahead and remove it. There's a certain process which has to be undertaken before they will. So for instance, you have to sign a waiver saying, yes, I agree to it, because it's not necessarily a perfect job of what they undertake. What happens is the color may be off a bit. So what they're doing, their prime job is to remove the graffiti, and they do their best that they can. And so some places they will not do because they don't get agreement before they will do it.
Right.
So all it's saying is that they will extend it. This motion is to extend it beyond the boundaries of the downtown area where the process is followed and where the caveats and agreements are signed beforehand.
And the addition is for additional resources to be able to manage it.
Yeah.
365 days a year in cold weather and beyond. for space. Question?
Okay. So obviously, there's going to be a cost to that. Will that be coming back to explain? Because I think if we're, okay, right there, very good. It's very timely because someone called me yesterday in Parliament Lounge. They were really pissed off that their place got graffitied, really tagged bad, and he was outside of the zone. And he's like, years ago, they used to kind of help us out and all that, but nothing's occurring. So this is timely. So this person would be able to now, if this passes and it gets approved by council, they would now be able to call 311. They would probably facilitate who to call and all that. And a person, let's say on the north side, south side, or even on the west side, we would have the resources now to go address that. Am I correct on that, if this resolution's passed?
I think that we just want to be careful in the clarity in that this would be a different graffiti abatement program. There'll be expansion of the one downtown, but completely separate from the Parks Department graffiti program that looks after our assets. So yes, I believe that's what this would be, but it wouldn't be the Parks Department graffiti program.
Okay, so it'd be another program outside of that. And when would that kick in if this passed?
Well, Councillor Middleton Hope, I don't know if you're in your previous discussions, if Ms. Amies has given any further direction as to what they would do.
Well, they'd have to get additional equipment and clearly resources to be able to accommodate it. But the comment that you made created unclarity. It's not a political statement. The reality is these funds and the additional responsibilities would be in addition to the current program that the BRZ operates. It is for private property. We're clear on that. Public property would still be managed on a citywide basis by the city.
Yes, and that program wouldn't change.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's not a third program.
Okay, so I want to make sure, so I'm going to call back this citizen today. It was timely that he called me yesterday, and this was on the fortuitous. So what can I say to him to reassure him that we are going to possibly do something in regards to this on a person's back fence? What would I say to them if this resolution is passed? That we're going to start doing this next week, the week after, 2 weeks, or is it in the fall, or is it 2025?
So the funding will be considered in November by council.
Okay.
So it wouldn't start before then.
Okay, thank you
It would
very
need to be approved, yeah.
Okay. And unless otherwise we allocated funds before then, which could occur, right?
If it were the will of council, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the will of council. So just to follow up on Councillor Parker's comment, the will of council. So if this is successful one way or t'other in going to council, then council could consider a change in the timeline for the requested funds?
Yeah, the way the motion is reading right now, the B funding consideration would be November operating budget. So if council wanted to do something differently, they would need to change that and then identify a funding source.
Okay, and council can do that?
But could this committee make that recommendation to council?
I mean, city treasurer is going to be upset that he didn't come and I'm answering for him, but
What I'll do is when it does come to council, I'll ask for it to be amended if need be.
I think
In
with
consultation with the city treasurer.
I think with any, if I were to think of other processes you've done, such as the fence, for instance, at the animal shelter, the council contingencies were used in that instance. So there's pots of money that council has available to you.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Campbell. Yeah. That would be Acting Mayor Campbell.
Just clarifying the funding source, does the BRZ, as it is right now, do they have a pocket of money for this specifically now, or is this in addition to something they're going to ask more? I guess they're going to ask more. Is that right?
Well, as you'd be aware, Acting Mayor Campbell, the BRZ does receive funding for graffiti abatement.
Yeah.
This would be in addition. Is that correct, Ms. Kleisinger?
So they've already would have used their allotment?
I think it would be based on, they've got a service level and they won't be able to expand that service level unless they have more funding.
Yeah.
And
so we're going from the downtown BRZ to the whole city.
Right, right. So, but is the downtown BRZ going to be the people that you phone and they'll go to Walmart and, in the north side or whatever? And is that how this is going to work?
I'm not sure I could answer the operational questions.
That's what Ms. Amy's had in mind, predicated on additional funding for equipment and personnel, or additional time for their personnel. So yes, the answer to that would be yes. That's what the long-term vision is, that graffiti knows no boundaries.
Okay.
So Ms. Kleisinger, we're looking at the $51,000 here. This is only one-time funding, though. Yeah, okay, so only one-time funding, and we're talking it about at November 2024. It says operating budget deliberations, but we're not actually deliberating an operating budget in November 2024. We are having some budget discussions, but our actual next budget deliberations for operations isn't until 2028.
So if I'm.
26, okay, yeah.
So if I may speak. So so at the task force, what they did is the request of 51,000 was for this year. And then there's an additional ask for beyond this year. And so it was assumed that there would be budget deliberations. There's always amendments to the budget, whether it be the start of a new budget or not. There always is amendments to the proposed budget. So that's what the second part is. Beyond this year, they would have an additional ask.
Okay.
And so that is in one of the attachments. So
Okay.
51,000 is for this year, and then there's additional funds which are required beyond this year.
Okay, so just making clear that everyone understands that it's one ask for this year, but then there will be ongoing asks. Will this then also make it into the 2026 operating budget deliberations? Because that's not clear here, and that should be stated that this would also be forwarded to those budget operations.
So
or
just
budget
for a little bit
deliberations.
of clarification, in November, anything that's been an ask of outside of our budget process will be coming forward in November.
Yep.
And so there will be numerous things that have come up throughout the year that are all being funneled to November discussions. And so then the idea of that is that council will be able to hear them all at the same time and make a more holistic decision based on a variety of requests.
Okay.
So, but on top of that, what I would say is that if this were to pass and you move forward with the downtown clean and safe strategy, we would do an analysis on the current program and get a bit of input and feedback on how it should be expanded. So probably if this were one-time funding, we would then do a deeper dive into what that should look like moving forward.
Okay, so we're only moving the one-time funding of $51,000 right now to that November discussion.
Yeah.
We're not talking about ongoing until after we have the clean and safe strategy come back.
That would be my recommendation.
Okay, as long as I understand that that's what we're doing.
So the 51,000 is request now. There is a further ask to be considered in November for beyond this year. So the 51,000 is for now.
And the 51,
And if that's not clear, then,
Yeah.
yeah,
that's
so there's
not
two
clear
asks.
for me at all.
51,000 is just for 2024.
and the 51,000 is predominantly equipment, because we as a city, currently have no equipment that is capable of removing graffiti in the wintertime. That's what the funding is for, primarily. If that's not clear and needs to be clarified, then we should do that at this juncture. But that's what it's primarily for, and to augment hours of operation.
So then in follow-up, I would have a question as to where the funding for the one-time funding for $51,000 is going to come from.
Magic.
That'd be question.
Yeah, for city manager, or city CFO.
And, yeah.
Okay, so we don't have the city CFO who is capable of responding to that question at this particular point.
So you can just pass it on to council at that time.
Yeah, we'll discuss it to council. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, let's,
And that'll come forward in October, correct? Or September?
It'll come the next meeting.
It'll come at the next meeting? Okay.
Not the meeting next Tuesday, this Tuesday coming up.
no, it's
No,
September.
it's going to come in September.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll have
Okay.
responses by then? Oh, you may have something new?
We also have a member of the from the Clean Sweep program who could provide some clarification on that 51,000 if it were helpful.
It would be really helpful. This is the gentleman that administers the program.
Good afternoon. My name is Glenn Elgersma, manager of the Clean Sweep program. Yeah, a little clarification on the 51,000. That is to do a term, part-time, or temporary, full-time program running a foreman to do the graffiti abatement and equipment rental and supplies and everything that goes with it, as well as hiring a clean sweep assistant for him. There isn't anything of the wintertime equipment with that. That was in the bigger proposal to have a self-contained trailer that could handle the pressure washer in the wintertime. This is just to use our existing pressure washing equipment, more manpower and supplies to go with that for the duration. Part of this came out of the fact that the initial funding for graffiti abatement in the contracts was based on 50, 80, maybe 100 graffiti tags in a year. We've done 66 this month. And because of that increase is where I just can't afford to have my foreman. They're running other programs. I can't get them on graffiti abatement long enough to make a dent in it. So that's why we went with this term, and then we knew that because it was coming up to I'm not sure of all the terms, the budget considerations in November to amend that. So that's where this kind of came out of. Not completely clear on the motion from the Lawlessness Task Force. I think Councillor Middleton Hope is more accurate on those statements, but that's kind of where this is coming from, if that helps.
Mark's shaking his head no.
Maybe.
I think it does. I think it provides us with some clarity in regards to where the $51,000 would be going. It also provides us with clarity that there's going to be an additional larger request come budget, and that there is a demonstrated need by virtue of the number of calls for service that you have received over the course of the last couple of years compared to this year.
And our calls for service do not extend too far. We get some from this warehouse district that I do have to say sorry to. We're not getting any really from the 13th Street North. That's a terrible area. This warehouse district has upwards of 35 tags right now. Big ones. I did one wall 3 times in last week on the Coco in the last 2 weeks, Coco Restaurant downtown. It's, yeah. The big guys might have slowed down, but the guys walking around with a can of spray paint haven't.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. No more additional questions? Any additional debate?
Yeah, we added one word.
We've added a word, so that has changed the entire complexion of the motion. If it's not, all right.
Just in the second paragraph.
Okay, so further be resolved that the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee forward further graffiti abatement strategy initiative funding for consideration at the November 2024 operating budget deliberations. Does the motion provide a measure of comfort for the members of council or members of the committee? Yes.
As long as at the next council meeting, we know what the funding source is for the $51,000, because right now we're approving that, but we don't have a funding source.
Yep. And we will ask that the chief financial officer provide us with that. Good. All right then. We can now go to a vote.
If you're ready.
All right.
Did you ever ask for input? For statements?
We got input from the public. Did you not see that? I'm just wondering.
You never really officially
Okay, the rest of you, thank you very much.
There might be someone online.
There isn't, we're offline. Okay. Then we'll call the question. Those in favor? Thank you, that motion carries. And we are now concluded. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, David, for your help there.
Yeah, whatever.
No, I'm serious.
No, David, thank you.
It takes a village.
Big fan, big fan.
I know it takes a village. Sorry.